It's Mrs. Swartwout, and this week we're about warm and cool colors. Last week we did the color wheel, and now we're going to be using that color wheel to help us understand another family of colors called warm and cool colors. Our assignment this week is called Warm and Cool Colors, Celestial Designs. Celestial means from the sky. In our case, we're going to be drawing pictures that is half moon and half sun. One half will be using warm colors and one half will be using the cool colors. So let's find out what those are. Last week we made color wheels that showed how the primary colors mix together to make the secondary colors. If we take that same color wheel and we think about it as a temperature, some colors feel warm, like fire or the sun, things that are warm. If I draw a line right down the middle of my color wheel, I can call this side the warm colors. The other side are the cool colors because they remind us of things that are cool. For example, water, grass, even grapes. Okay, so the warm colors are red, orange, and yellow. And the cool colors are purple, blue, and green. Students, if you got the packet that goes home, you would have gotten a piece of paper that looks like this. I'm also going to have this on the Google Classroom that you could print from there. And if you don't have that, it's okay too. You could just use a blank piece of white paper or the back of a paper that you have somewhere that hasn't been used. The first step is to draw a circle in the middle of the rectangle. Now, I find it's easier for me if I draw circles using stuff that's already a circle. So I went around my house and I looked for things that were shaped like a circle. Let's see what I found. Certainly one of these things has to work. So what I'm going to do is try different ones and see which one fits. That is too big, so I can't use that one. That's kind of small. I don't know if I could draw a face in the middle of a circle that small. Still a little bit small. I know. I'm going to use the lid to cottage cheese. I'm going to put it right in the middle. Not over there, not over here. Right in the middle. And when I think I have it in the middle, top and bottom, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to hold it with one hand. And with my other hand, I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to trace the circle. Okay? So step one was draw a circle in the middle of the rectangle. If you don't have anything to trace, you can draw your own circle. On the second step, you're going to draw a line down the middle of the circle, and that's going to separate it so that half is the sun and half is the moon. You're also going to try to do this with facial features. Let me show you a scoring guide that I actually took home from our classroom to give you some ideas of what that would look like if you were going to score a 4, a 3, a 2, or a 1. You can see on the facial feature scoring guide that the 1 is just kind of a line. Can't really tell if it's a sun or a moon. The 2, it's a line with a little bit of a bend in it for the nose. But when you get up to the 3, the line isn't just a straight line anymore. It kind of looks like a moon. And then the more detailed they get, the more elaborate it gets, the higher the score would be. Remember, 3 would be grade level standard. So if you can get the 3, you're doing just fine. Now I'm going to take my pencil and do what we just talked about with the scoring guide. I'm going to find where I want to start my moon. I'm actually going to draw the moon part first, and then I'm going to draw the line from the top and the line to the bottom. So I'm going to go in, add a curve, and I'm going to come down. There's a bump for his eye, a little line, and his nose is going to stick way out. My moon has a big nose. And then down, a bump, 2 bumps for his lip, and then a pointy chin. And then I have a moon. I can continue to add those facial features. There's some eyelashes. Here's part of his nose. He is sound asleep. And then on the other side, I'm going to add facial features for the sun. My sun is not asleep, so I'm going to draw an eye for my sun where it's awake. I'm going to keep drawing that, and I'm going to extend a line down from where the moon starts and ends so I can separate. This part of my paper will end up being nighttime, and this part of my paper will end up being daytime. All right, now I'm done drawing with my pencil. I have my facial features. I have some designs on both sides, and I'm ready for step 3. Trace. The wonderful thing about tracing is you can use it with the fat markers too. I got these at Target, and if you were in 2nd grade with me last year, you learned that the same marker can make fat lines and skinny lines. If I point the marker up towards the sky, it can still make skinny lines. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to start tracing. Even though it's a fat marker, see how skinny my line is? Every single pencil line I drew, I want to cover up and trace. See how much darker and more vibrant and bright it is when you trace? All right, I'm going to keep tracing, and I'll be right back. All right, I finished tracing all of my pencil lines. And before I go on to step 3, I need to take care of one thing. In a couple places, I wasn't able to trace exactly over the top of my pencil lines. So before I do anything else, I need to go back through. And whatever I could not erase, whatever I could not trace, I need to erase. I'm almost done erasing, and I just remembered something I wanted to tell you. The pencil lines, they like to hide when we're looking for them to erase, just like the white spots hide when we're trying to color things. So do you see the spot I missed? Yep, that's right there. So if you have a friend or a learning buddy, before you go to step 4 to color, make sure you have them help you look and make sure that you've either traced or erased all those pencil lines. Now I'm ready for the last step. Before I do that, I want to go back and remind myself. Let me think. Which colors are warm? Red, orange, and yellow. Okay, so these are for the sun. Which colors are cold? Purple, blue, and green. Okay, so those are for the moon. All right, so warm colors for the sun and cool colors for the moon. I am going to be using crayons because that's what I have. All right, I'm going to color this and I will be right back. Now I've only colored part of the sun, and then I started thinking about things I wanted to tell you. One thing I wanted to tell you was you can use colors that aren't on the color wheel if they're based on colors from the color wheel. For example, pink, it's just a shade of red. If you add white to red, you get pink. So pink would be considered a warm color. I could add pink. I could add any shade of blue, any shade of purple, and any shade of green. If you're lucky enough to have more than 24 crayons, then you probably have a ton of different colors you could use. 2 more things. If you want to leave the eye part where it's white, you can leave that white. And brown is a warm color. So if you wanted to add brown to the eye, that would work too. Seems like every time I start coloring a little bit, I start thinking about things I want to remind you guys about. So before I finished coloring, I remembered another thing. We don't have our posters we would normally have in school. But if you're using an art tool, remember we learned how to use these over the years. So if you're using a crayon or a colored pencil, remember we color in the same direction. We go back and forth the same direction, and it just looks like higher quality work that way. And go back and make sure that you try to do those white spots. Another thing you want to try to do, especially when you're using crayon, it helps you stay in the lines, is if you trace the edge of your image, kind of gives you a little bump there, and it helps you stay in the lines. That is very useful when you're trying to make your art quality and do a beautiful job. Well, as I was coloring my son, I decided I wanted to use a different tool. I do have those markers, so I thought it might be a good time to review what we learned in second grade about how to use a marker the right way. So if you choose to use markers when you're coloring your celestial design, remember the steps we've learned. First, you outline, and you use the skinny part of the marker to outline. And then we do stripe, lift, stripe, lift. Remember, friends, we do not want bleed through on our pictures. So if I lay my marker down flat, stripe, lift, stripe, lift. I always lift it. Stripe, lift, stripe, lift, stripe, lift, stripe, lift, and then tap, tap, tap those white spots. Looks good. Well, artists, you can see I'm almost done with my picture. A couple more things I wanted to tell you about before I finished up. These are things we learned in first grade. If you want to make your crayon coloring even more interesting, you can do a couple different things. You can add patterns. As you see, I'm adding some patterns to my sky, some swirly lines. And all you have to do is pick another color and go right over the top. You could do all kinds of patterns. You can also layer colors. In first grade, we learned that sometimes if you put more than one color in the space, it looks even more interesting. So I already colored the sun yellow, and now I'm going to go back over it with yellow-orange. I'm going to color really lightly. And even though I'm not adding a lot of color, it's still making my sun look more vibrant, more real. The cool thing about layering your colors, my friends, is sometimes those pesky white spots that try to hide from us, sometimes one color can get into those when another color can't. I don't know how it works, I just know it's true. Another thing I love about crayons is if you color darker, you can get different kinds of lines. And if you color lighter, you can get lighter lines. So, artists, what are you going to put in your celestial design? One thing to remember, if you are going to layer and add your patterns, you never want to put markers over crayon. It will ruin your markers because the wax will get gunked up inside the tip. So when you're layering, only layer the same item on top of the same item. So marker on top of marker, or crayon on top of crayon, but you never want to do marker over the top of crayon because that just does not work. Well, artists, I finally finished coloring, and I think I found all the white spots. Might have to go back and check, but that's okay. I hope you remember the difference between warm colors and cool colors. And I hope you have fun doing our celestial design. Take care, my friends.